person would be operating according to the commands of the catapult officer. Okay? The first thing you're going to do is tension the bridle, which means you're tightening that bridle where the aircraft is set up. So you do that. And then once you get that bridle tension, you go into standby. And from down here, they approve. And you go into a final ready mode. All right? Aircraft is ready to go. Once everything is set, this is the fire button right here. You press fire, catapult's fired, that piston fires, and the aircraft is going. Okay. If at any time during the course of that launch there's a problem, say you see somebody wandering in front of that aircraft and they're not supposed to be there, you can actually throw a switch and it deactivates the whole system. That aircraft is not going to launch. You have multiple places that could do that, including the air boss up in the island structure who's watching the flight deck. They can completely suspend all the operations. Once you launch, though, you need to retract this catapult into a firing position again. You pull this down, you hit this, and what will happen is that eventually the entire catapult resets and that light will come on when it's in the firing position again. This catapult could launch an aircraft once every 3 minutes, and there were 2 catapults up there. They would alternate, so what they would do is they would launch about every minute and a half, from the carrier. Okay? As we walk by, you'll see that there's some ropes attached over there. Just be aware that there were never ropes used in here. It was always high-tension steel cable. The red posts are over there to protect the crew in here, because if that cable broke, basically it could cut right through a person. And it did back in the old days, every once in a while. This also was one of the 2 places on the ship where you were most likely to lose your hearing. The other one was where I worked, which was engine room. And I do have some hearing loss. Okay, let's go this way. And the funny thing is, when I give tours to other people who did what I did back in those days, yeah, they're all here like, yeah, I got it too, I got it too, because they were all in the same environment. Yeah. Okay, I stopped here for a reason. Back in the old days, in those, the gas they would use to fire that catapult was actually air. They had a problem on USS Bennington in 1954. They fired that catapult. What ended up happening was some of that hot, high-pressure air made it through into the piston, and it mixed with the hydraulic fluid, which was flammable. It exploded in diesel ignition. It blew the top, all the piping off the top of the accumulator, and the forward part of the ship filled with an oil fog. Once that fog hit a spark, boom. Okay. On the Bennington, about 100 people were killed on that day. Okay. After that, the Navy said, hey, there has to be a better way to do this. Nitrogen. Okay. There's a plant down below us that is actually manufacturing the nitrogen and oxygen for the ship. And after that, they would use nitrogen in those catapult systems because it's non-combustible. It's not going to have that same problem. Okay?
How does it feel when I get it?
Cool, I learned to print off of this in the corner. Individual typesetting, I don't think they do that anymore.
They actually quit.
Print was
Where,
print.
where I come from.
Yeah.
I see there's a dark room right along with
Yeah, the dark room.
That'd be from some of the photos taken by the planes scanners.
Could very well be. Yeah. Okay, are you
Last
the
one.
Okay,
We're
good.
going out.
So people can start going up now when you come down. So what about the Coast Guard? Do we actually have any brigs on any of their ships?
No,
No.
I would know too. Have any what?
So be careful as you go up. It's a print shop. So now the remainder of the group can go in. When you go in, watch your head, and there's a step up. Please be careful there.
Stay out long enough for.
You know what it is? We're on the fourth deck right now, which is the harbor deck. That's actually a reinforcing feature.
You get 2 beds. 3 beds, actually.
think it's 3 beds for
3 beds.
2 beds for 2 people, and then 2 beds.
Yeah, we did on the ships also have what was known as the plan of the day, and it always told you what the ship was doing, it gave cold weather, it gave news from back home, it gave sports scores. So all kinds of things. Of course, on ships nowadays, they have internet, which we never do.
Not even when I started.
How do you punish a sailor nowadays? You take away their high-speed internet.
It's still far more space than tank cruise.
Oh, I see.
It's spacious compared to tank. And so I was in, I was mostly in ground controls, so things called Saxons or Catapult boxes here.
Yeah, they're like jails.
So do the soldiers have to respond to the captain or not?
Well, everybody responds to the captain. You have to respond to the captain. And the jail is actually run by the Marines, the same people who are running the security here for this area. The Marines provide security on the ship. And so you never want to make a Marine mad, okay? Because, for example, if they're moving prisoners around and you upset the Marine, guess what? You might be joining the prisoners. All right, so you don't want to make a Marine upset. Okay. So as you see, this is kind of an intimidating looking door with the warnings on it. This is the entrance, primary entrance for where nuclear weapons were kept. 1951 or 2, all the way up until 1970. Even when the ship was an anti-submarine aircraft carrier, they had the capability for a weapon known as the Mark 101 Lulu, which was a nuclear depth bomb. If they detected, for example, a submarine was about to start launching missiles at the United States, they could send one of the helicopters or S-2 aircraft over and they drop out one of these Lulus, their name, and basically it would be an 11 kiloton charge. Pretty much if you get it in the vicinity of the submarine, you guarantee that that submarine was not going to be launching anything. Okay, so they were the ones that worked down here. They were kind of the techie nerds of their time, and they didn't really want them mixing with the rest of the crew. So in addition to working down there, they also lived down there. There's a berthing area that would accommodate about 20 people down there. They had interesting senses of humor. They would play jokes on the Marine. And one of the jokes that I've heard from multiple ships is that inside this hatch, they would set up a static electricity generator. They'd get the field going. The hatch would open up and the Marine would be here, and the technician is holding a fluorescent light bulb that's not hooked up to anything, but it's glowing brightly, okay, because it's in the field, okay, but the Marine doesn't know that. The technician says to the Marine, you see, we're pretty exposed in here, but then he hands the light bulb out, And because it's out of the field, it goes out, and the technician tells the Marine, "You're still okay." Okay? Takes the light bulb back, it lights up, hatch closes, and the wheel spins. And basically, the Marine is out here saying, "I'm never, ever going in that place." Okay? Really, I've been through there. We're about to open that area up fairly soon for tours. I've even taken a Geiger counter down there before. There's no radiation down there. Everything's okay. But there are shops down there, instrument shop, battery shop. When you get down to actually where the weapons were kept, you also have a detonator shop. And it would take them about 24 hours to put one of these weapons together. Okay? And that was the job of the people down there, in addition to having a funny sense of humor. Eventually the weapons became fairly simple, and you didn't need a lot of instruments. So the sailors down there turned their instrument shop into a snack bar. All right, so it made more sense. Any questions about this at all? This was all tobacco back in the day. Okay, a lot of people on these ships smoked almost all the time, and so that was all tobacco. In fact, it was incredibly cheap. People that I knew serving back in those days, they could get a pack of cigarettes for 7 cents. And it could be even cheaper, because what they would do is the ships would pull out, go away from the coast, and once you get, I think it's like 11 or 15 miles out, no more taxes apply. And so basically they take the ship out that far, they sell out everything that they have in here, and then the ship would turn around and come back into the States. Okay, except that this area would be now empty. Okay. The ship would make an announcement, when they crossed that line, and people could start making those purchases. Okay. Let's go this way. Now, I can't take you down here because this area below me is not restored, but there are some interesting things about it. One is that when you're on a ship out at sea, you have to have the ability to make your own fresh water. And that's what was done down here, actually. There were what were known as evaporators down here. They would take in seawater, and through a process, multiple stage of flashing and condensing that seawater, they could change it from salt water into a fresh water that could be used by the ship. Okay? Majority of the water was not used for the crew. It was actually used for the engineering, because they needed to make steam to be able to drive the ship. So that's the primary use. Hopefully, if you were a crew member, you had enough water to drink and take showers and things like that. But you always had to take a Navy shower. Your Navy shower is basically you get in the shower, you turn the water on for only a few seconds, just enough to get wet, you turn it off, you rub soap all over yourself, and then you only get a few more seconds to be able to rinse that off. If you take more time in the shower, somebody in there is going to be yelling at you like, "Hey, take a Navy shower in there." Okay. This ship did run out of water during Apollo 11. In addition to the full crew of the ship, who knew how to take Navy showers, you had 200 people from the news media. They did not know Navy showers. They took the other type of shower, which in the Navy is called a Hollywood shower. Coast Guard call that? Do you know?
We call them sea showers.
Okay. Anyway, so the ship ran out of water, and the captain of the Hornet, Captain Cyberlick, had to go and tell the news people, this is how you take a Navy shower, and there's no question of it, you have to do it. Okay. One more thing that I think is cool down here, because I'm into history. Some of you may have heard this, I don't know. When they started building this ship, they started building this ship under a different name. Okay? When they started constructing this Hornet, the previous Hornet was still out there fighting in the Pacific, but it actually was sunk in October of 1942 in the Battle of Santa Cruz Islands. When that Hornet got sunk, President Roosevelt contacted the Navy and said, I want a Hornet out there. Hornet's a name in the Navy that goes all the way back to the Revolutionary War. Okay? What the President wants, the President gets, so this ship got renamed. There's a few secret places you can go on board, like down here, where you can find a reference to the original name, which is USS Kearsarge. Okay? However, there's only a few of them. All right? Any questions here?
So how long was the ship at sea?
How long was the
For a typical tour?
Well, actually, during those 15 months it was out for World War II, it actually did not pull up to a dock or a pier.
So it had a lot
It
of
only had ships, and they'd be in an anchorage and things would be brought out to them. But my experience on the Midway later on was, at one point we spent almost 3 months at sea. Okay, and that's 3 months at sea is, there's no days off. You're on a watch schedule that's working its way around the clock. And if you're doing that for 3 months straight, you get pretty tired. Okay, so it could be a month, 3 months. Okay. Now I did have a pilot from USS Nimitz standing right on my tour here who said to me, you're going to hate me. And I said, well, why am I going to hate you? He said, we don't have to take Navy showers anymore. He said, the USS Nimitz uses reverse osmosis to make their fresh water. And he said they can make 1 million gallons of water a day compared to the 90,000 gallons that could be produced down here. Okay? So, anyway.
How long did it take you to get used to not taking Navy showers?
I think these signs are more of a joke than anything else. We didn't have to pay for hot dogs or anything like that. But the primary thing served here was ice cream. The machines are right back there. Okay. Now, I showed you the catapults, and every once in a while you fire that catapult, and for some reason, either the catapult malfunctioned or the engines in the aircraft didn't quite work right. That aircraft would go down in the water, and there's going to be a destroyer, a small ship called a plane guard destroyer that's going to come in and do their best to rescue the crew of that aircraft before it sinks down in the water and is lost. Okay? Later that day, or the next day, that destroyer would come back alongside the carrier and hopefully send the aircrew back to the carrier. The thing was, back in World War II, destroyers did not have the space to be able to have ice cream machines. They didn't have it on board. So when you were sending the aircrew back to the carrier had to pay. They had to pay for that aircrew. The going rate for an aviator in World War II was 5 gallons of ice cream. Okay? You laugh, but at the same time, that's how a lot of things get done in the military. Okay? It depends on the rank of the person. USS Enterprise lost their airgroup commander. His name was Killer Kane, and he was gone for a number of days. They thought they lost him until the destroyer comes alongside the Enterprise, and this is the old World War II Enterprise, and flashes its signal light. How much ice cream can we get for Killer Kane? The Enterprise ended up paying 20 gallons, 4 times the going rate for that one person, just because the Enterprise missed him so much. Okay? That's how things happen. There's a lot of stories around here, the underground economy that's happening. So, any questions in here at all? Okay. All right, let's head this way. I have to do this. I have a gentleman from the Coast Guard. oxygen breathing apparatus, and these would actually sit on your chest. If you needed to fight a fire, you got completely suited up, and basically this and then the mask would go on your face, and you would take one of those canisters down below, you'd pop it into the bottom of the apparatus, lock it into place, you pull a lanyard, and it starts burning chemicals and giving off oxygen. All right? It would give off about 30 minutes of oxygen, and what you need is you set a timer on there for 25 minutes, because when that timer goes, it's telling you you have 5 minutes left to get out to a safe place. Okay, so they taught us how to use these. And I have to say, in the Navy and probably the Coast Guard, they train you by actually doing the thing. So what we would do is we got all suited up, we were breathing on these things, and they light an entire space on fire, and you have to walk into this burning space and put it out. And then what they did, when you were all the way in that space, they throw a switch, and the whole place goes up in flames again, and you have to basically work your way out. Okay, so it was kind of interesting to go through as a teenager in doing that. Okay, so that's an OBA. Okay, those cans that you just are looking at, this is a protein-based liquid that forms what's known as fog foam. So if you need to fight an oil-based fire, you're going to be spraying this. It's like a foam, and it's going to smother that fire. And these cans, basically, you could either use them individually, or there's hoppers up above. Say if you had a hangar deck fire, you could be pouring this stuff into the hoppers, and then that's going to be going for the fires up in the hangar deck, or maybe the flight deck. Okay. They used to tell us also it's a protein-based liquid. If you need to abandon ship, you could grab a can of this stuff and live off of it. But if you ever smelled it, I think I'd not want that alternative. Trying to get 10 guys on a life raft and live off of this would not be very good. Okay. It stinks. It really, 10 times worse than cod liver oil, if you know what that smells like. Okay. So, any questions?
Very much too. If you got any open wounds, it hurts.
Oh, does it?
It burns, it stings.
Yeah, yeah. Now, you would be working with SCBA now, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But when I first got in, I was using OBA.
You would use OBA. Yeah, okay.
That's the same stuff they use on crude tanks. I think, yeah, with fire trucks and stuff like that. That's pretty much the same stuff.
What the AFFF, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff. Okay, fire room over here. We don't have time to go into it, but in the fire room, they were burning a very crude fuel oil known as bunker oil, and they were taking the water that was produced in the evaporators, turning it into steam. All right, the steam they were producing out of the superheater side of the boilers was coming out at 600 pounds pressure at 850 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's what would be going to the ship's engines and to the ship's generators to be able to make electricity. Okay? It's a really crude fuel. At room temperature, it's almost like a tar-like substance. You have to run steam through it and even heat it up to be able to inject it into the boilers. It's that bad. All right? Fuel economy of the Hornet. Do you think you're going to see that Energy Star sticker up on the ship? You're not. Okay? They calculated how far this ship went in World War II, and they calculated how much fuel was consumed, and they came up with the figure that this ship will go 24 feet per gallon. Okay. However, the ship's gas tanks for that bunker fuel would hold 1.6 million gallons. And so if you're economical with your cruising, like maybe 18 knots, 15 knots, you could go maybe 20,000 nautical miles. Okay. This ship served with Admiral Halsey in World War II. Admiral Halsey didn't go 15 or 18 knots anywhere. He was always chasing the Japanese anytime that he could, and so he was going 30 knots whenever he possibly could. Okay, fast. And so they went through a lot of that fuel. On the carrier I served on, we had a tanker alongside us about every third day. It was basically, refilling our tanks, not only for the fuel for the ship, but also for the aviation